everyone. Welcome to episode 66 of the Thrifty Marketer Talks. I'm super happy to be here today because I have a very special guest. Let me share something interesting about my guest today, right? She obviously, all the guests who come on the show are exceptional in their field of work, etc. But these are amazing individuals as well, humans as well, right? So I invited her on the show. She went and checked out my podcast, and she listened to a couple of episodes, and she offered to record, because she's a voiceover artist, she's an expert in that field. She recorded an intro and outro for my show. So if you listen to my last two episodes, you can hear her voice introducing the show and doing all that explanation about the show. So that's how amazing my guests are. So I'm super grateful for her. She has recommended me an amazing microphone as well. I ordered it. It came broke, and I have to get it back. So let me introduce her first. I have none other than Jodi Krangle today with me. She's a Toronto-based voice actor who works with major brands all over the world, including Dell, BBVA, HGTV, Nespresso, and Kraft. She's been heard in thousands of your favorite commercials and on your favorite brand websites too. Her voice has been described as warm, friendly, and comforting with a hint of gravitas, and coupled with her years of professional work in sound will take your project to the next level. On a podcast, Audio Branding, she had a guest offer advice on making an impact with sound. That's exactly what we are going to discuss today, and how sound influences us both in our buying decisions and our daily lives. Being a sought after voiceover talent, Jodi understands the power of sound. Follow her on Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., and also our website, voiceoversandvocals.com. So today's topic is the power of sound, why audio branding matters. So without further ado, let me bring her on.
Hey.
Hey, thank you so much for coming on the show, first of all.
I'm
And
happy to be here.
thank you so much for the amazing intro and outro you did for the show. I'm super grateful for that.
You're very welcome. I was happy to
How,
do it.
how are you doing? How are things in Toronto?
They're really good, actually. We're starting to actually get a bit of warm weather, which for us is, we're coming out of the lie that is spring.
I know.
Canada has no spring. There's no such
Right,
thing.
right. Yeah. A lot of my friends who are in Canada, they say that the weather can get really tricky sometimes.
It's very strange. Yeah. So, like a couple of weeks ago, we were dealing with melting snow, and now it's like 22 Celsius. So,
Right.
yeah,
But nevertheless, it's a beautiful country, right?
it is. It is. And I
And
am
beautiful
really
people.
enjoying my backyard right now. I can tell you that.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. All right. So, Jody, I know the topic is power of sound, why audio branding, and you may not be a marketer from per se, but some of the questions you might have to answer, based on your expertise and your take on it. Doesn't matter because
Hmm.
you are the expert here. So, if you're ready, we can start off.
Sure.
Absolutely. So the first basic question, a couple of my friends asked me this question as well when I announced this episode. What is audio branding? And
Yeah.
why is it important today for business and content creators?
Well, it's a good question, but I'm going to give you the definition that the International Sound Awards gives for the definition of audio branding. They've been doing an award show based on this, based on
Right.
making the world sound better since about
Right.
2009, I think. And they define it as a brand sound that represents the identity and values of a brand in a distinctive manner. So the audio logo or sonic logo, branded functional sound. So maybe if your kettle makes a specific sound when it boils, or your washing machine makes a specific sound when it's done, those are branded sounds.
Right.
Or a brand voice. So a voiceover, the type of music that you use, all of that are characteristic elements of audio branding. So it's a big umbrella. It's
Right,
all about the
right,
sound that you have to differentiate your company from another one. And
right,
the reason that this is so important right now is because a lot of us have, Google Home and Alexa and all of these things in our houses, and we have very busy lives. We're multitasking, we're doing many different things while we're supposedly watching television or watching a stream online or
right.
whatever. A lot of the stuff that we experience right now is only in sound. And if it's only in
Absolutely.
sound, how do you sound different from your competitor?
Right, right.
You
So
kind of
powerful,
need
actually.
to.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, some of our childhood memories are also connected with these jingles of brands, etc.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
remember some in my childhood.
Oh,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Right. So let's straightforward question. How can a brand even create a unique and memorable sonic identity?
I think that, first of all, if you have the ability, you should work with an audio branding company because that's what they do all day, every day. So,
Right.
if someone wants a list of some of the ones you can reach out to, I definitely have some ones that I can suggest.
Right.
But if you're working on a budget and you just want to try and do something on your own, I would say that experiment with sound. I
Right.
mean, this is all about how things make you feel, how sounds make you feel. So
Right.
think about who you are and who your audience is. Who are you trying to reach? And
Right.
kind of meld those two and figure out if you can show who you are sound wise to the people who will get you.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot that goes into that, and every audio branding company has their own process for doing it. So,
Right.
far be it from me to step on their toes. But
Right.
the reason that you might want to do this, I mean, there are a lot of reasons that you should be doing this in some
Right.
aspect, especially if you're a company that expects to make it into the next, decade because
Right.
this is coming up really fast. Like AI, like all of that
Absolutely.
synthetic stuff, it's all part and parcel of all of this.
Right.
And to be unique, you need your own sound. So it is about differentiating from your competitor. It's about reaching the heart of your audience really quickly because sound
Right.
does that in an instant
Right.
and it makes you feel. So looking at something, you get an idea of what it's about. You don't really like it doesn't make you care. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? So
Right.
sound makes you care. The example I usually give for this is if you're watching a movie, turn off the sound and see how
Yeah.
you feel about the movie. You'll still
Right.
understand what's going on. It's not like you
Yeah.
won't get it. You're just
Yeah.
not going to care because you're not getting the emotional cues from the music or the tone of voice or the sound effects that are going on in the
Right.
scene. There's no context. You don't have that emotional context. So that's really what you want to do for your company. You want to make sure that it has emotional context because without that, it doesn't reach deeply into your audience's heart. And then, they don't know how to feel about you and they want to feel
Absolutely.
about you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that's a perfect example you gave, right? If you mute a movie and watch it, you are not going to cry at the emotional scenes. You're not going to laugh at the funny scenes. Nothing is going to happen, because that sound, I don't know how to put it in words. I'm not an expert, but the sound has some weird effect on us, right?
Yeah.
It is very deep, actually. It's some
Well,
level on. Yeah, please.
yeah. In a movie, they use the sound as almost another character. So, really, what you're trying to do is figure out what emotion you want people to feel in that moment, and you're crafting sound to make people feel it
Right,
so
right,
that they get more of an impact from what's going on the screen.
right,
And that's really what you want to do with anything that you're doing with a company, especially when you're marketing. I mean, the worst thing for advertising, for instance, is to be ignored. It's
right.
just that's the worst thing, right? You don't,
Yeah, yeah,
as an
yeah.
advertiser, you do not want to be ignored. That's
Right.
that, the best way to not be ignored is to have a sound that's compelling and that makes people feel about what you're creating. And even if they don't like what you're creating,
Right.
because Because marketing and advertising isn't only about attracting people who get you, it's also about repelling people who don't. So, so if you think about it, really what you want to do is you want to reach out to the people who get you and you want to
Right.
keep away the people who don't. Because those
So
aren't the people that can get the most from what you're offering. They won't understand who you are or what you're trying to do. So
right.
don't waste your time trying to convert them. Convert the people
Right.
who do get you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'm on the budget side of things. If you can see my brand name itself. So I've been using a lot of AI tools for generating voice for
Sure.
the intro. You got that correctly. It's very robotic voice and all that. When you talk about this emotion part, why I'm bringing up this point is recently I saw one of the tools. Some of the guys reached out to me to ask me to try it out. So I
Hmm.
could see that now AI has got to that level where you can have happy voices, you can have sad voices,
Yeah.
you can have cheer, various emotions actually. So it's a pretty crazy world out there when it comes to sound.
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
While I,
right,
I know it's, and I know it's going to get better. I mean, I totally know where this is going. But at
right.
the same time, there's a nuance to the human voice connecting to a piece of copy that
Absolutely,
a computer just can't get, at least not
absolutely,
now. It's possible that
absolutely.
it will in the future. But
Yeah,
if you have a script, for instance, that's like 30 seconds long and you use a happy AI the whole way through, that's
it's not
going to
gonna work.
be like frenetic. It's going to sound
Right,
weird. It's going to sound off. It's not going to
absolutely,
sound like, a genuine connection, which is what you want to make with your audience. So
absolutely.
I mean, right now, I can usually tell when an AI voice, when a synthetic voice is being used because the inflections are all wrong.
Right,
It doesn't know which words to emphasize. It doesn't know which words need to sound longer or shorter, whether they should end up or down. It just doesn't understand that. It's following what the software created when that voice actor put in that voice to be
absolutely,
synthesized. So
absolutely.
yeah, and I think at this point, maybe it can even do what you want it to do, but it's going to take some programming of the
Yeah,
person putting the voice in to, like, highlight a word and see how it sounds and then say go down on
yeah,
this and see how it sounds and then wait,
yeah,
can I get this word lengthened? No. Okay. I'm not sure what to do with that. Like, there's
right,
all sorts of little niggly details, I
yeah,
think, that right now you'd
yeah,
have to figure out.
yeah.
Just hire a voice actor who can do it for
Absolutely,
you.
absolutely. Whatever you do, you add a long pause, you try different pauses, stressing on certain words. It's
Yeah.
not going to sound like a voice actor for sure.
I
It's not
mean,
going to.
yeah, and especially if you want to make a genuine connection. Everyone's BS-o-meter is so high right now
Right,
that really the minute that they see or hear that you've cheaped out on your audio, which unfortunately synthetic voice really kind of sounds cheap right now,
absolutely, absolutely.
that they're going to wonder, okay, well, why couldn't they afford the real thing? What
Right,
happened?
right,
Like,
absolutely.
why should I give them
So
my money?
absolutely. So true, so true. It's actually a valid point over there. Actually, when you send me in your voice the
Hmm.
intro and outro, I was recording it. My wife was listening to it. So every Saturday when I do my podcast episode, I create it so she will hear this mechanical voice for last several months.
Yeah.
Suddenly there was your voice. She came out of the kitchen and she asked me, "What happened to this? Who is this?" That was the impact it could create. So you're absolutely
Yeah.
correct over there.
And you don't
All
know
right.
until you try, right? I mean, because you were
So
using the synthetic voice for so long and she was like, eh. And then suddenly a real voice appears and it's like, wait,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
absolutely.
that's, you want that from the start, really.
Exactly, exactly. All
Yeah.
right. So moving on, my next question is, what are some of the common mistakes you have seen brands making when developing their audio branding?
Oh, so many. One of the biggest I've heard is, and major brands are just as guilty of this as smaller brands and individuals, using license-free music directories. And
Oh,
the reason, and I mean, I'm as guilty of it as others because in the very beginning of my podcast, that's what I went for. That's what I did. And it can get you to your sound. It shouldn't be where you end up. And the reason I say that is because anyone can use the same piece of music that you just used for whatever they want. It's a directory, it's wide open. There are no exclusive rights to any piece of music on there, unless you're going to pay thousands and thousands of dollars. And I don't even know if they'll let you do that. But generally, anyone can use the same piece of music, which takes away that first thing I was talking about, differentiation, right? So you start sounding like everybody else. And everybody else can sound like you.
So true.
Yeah. And that's just, it's not a good place to be. So just to demonstrate how this works, like I said, when I started with my podcast, I used a piece of music that I thought was really, I liked it a lot. It had some nice energy. It had an earwormy, strummy thing at the beginning that I thought would, be part of someone's, like they would recognize that it was my podcast immediately kind of deal.
Right.
I don't know who else was using it. I have no idea, right? I didn't even think about it. And I was using that for about 100 episodes. And then about 100 episodes in, I was like, well, maybe I should, walk the talk. I'm talking about audio branding here. Maybe I should, invest in that. So what I did was I paid a musician and he created something that was sort of similar to what I had gotten from the license-free music directory, because I still really liked that opening strumming thing. That I wanted that. I wanted something that was similar to that. And I just wanted to switch the emotion a little bit and make it a little cooler, right? So it went a little grungy. And I liked that for about 50 episodes. I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Okay, let's leave that. And then after 50 episodes, I was like, well, maybe I'm a little more refined than that. So, maybe it's time to update the sound to something that's a little more techno, a little more smooth, a little more AI almost. Like it has a tech feel to it, right? And I hired someone else to do that. And I hired that person also to make the little bits and pieces in between the stuff that happens in my podcast. So if there's like an ad, then I have like a little trill or something that's the same thing that he made that fits that brand. And then something to close out the ad, a little trill of some kind, right? So sound effects, any kind of little spot stuff that you need that fits with the music that you have created. That kind of thing can really lend itself to creating an identity for you in sound. But notice also that it evolved over time. None of it was written in stone. It's not going to last forever. You change, your audio brand can change, right?
Absolutely.
But that's what's so cool about this, because you can change it as you change. It just may need some help from some outside sources. That's all. But it's well worth doing. And it's well worth doing because then you own it. It's yours. No one else can use it. You can use it for as long as you want. And you don't have to be paying a license-free music directory every time you want to change something. So, I mean, it's a bit more of an investment, definitely, but it will save you money over time, especially like the large brands, like they're creating, I don't know, 50 different pieces of content a week, maybe more. And imagine if you had to get a different piece of music or a different sound effect or something for all of those different pieces of content. That's a huge amount of money. Absolutely. So investing in an audio brand gives them control over what they're putting out into the world and who they're presenting as, showing the world who they are, but also it saves them a ton of money.
Yep, absolutely. If you're in it for the long game, I think you should do it the right way.
Yeah. But like I said, like I didn't start out that way. So you don't have to start out that way. You can evolve into it. But if you can, it's a good place to evolve to.
Right. Absolutely. It's a long journey anyway. So
yes.
Keep evolving. Yep. All right. So my next question is about music and sounds. Like, for example, how do different genres of music and sound affect, our emotional response to a brand?
Well, I think that one of the things that I've talked about with my guests on the show is that music, like I said, hits us really emotionally and deeply. And
Right.
it brings us back to the times that we experienced those pieces of music. So,
Right.
like, I'm an 80s kid. So, any 80s music, oh, yeah, I'm back in like junior high, like, high school.
Right.
Yeah, like I'm right back there. And it's not like I'm remembering, I'm experiencing. That's the
Yep.
difference between sound and a lot of other senses. When you hear something that reminds you of something, it doesn't just remind you, you feel what you felt back then. And that
Right.
becomes like time travel. It really
Right.
does.
So
So,
true.
yeah, so it's so powerful what it does for us. So I
Right.
just like when people say, "Oh, it doesn't matter." I'm like, "What planet are you living on?"
Right. Right. They have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, I just I don't get it. I think people are more likely to take it for granted than they are to
Right.
use it consciously. And I think
Right.
that's the major problem. And that's what brands and companies need to come to terms with.
Right, right, right. All right. So next, just a second. My son is behind me.
Hi.
So yeah. So my next question is about voiceover, which is your area, narration, etc. So what role does voiceover and narration play in audio branding, and how can it be used effectively?
Well, that has a lot to do with the scripts that a voice actor is given, but the difference between we were just talking about this with the intro. The difference between a synthetic voice and a human voice is the connection. Is the actually understanding what you're saying and how it impacts the people that are hearing it and how
Right,
it impacts you. Because as a voice actor, you are taught through coaching, like this happens over time, but it is acting. And acting is taking what's on the page and making it real for yourself in your
right,
internal monologue, in your theater of the mind that's going on, that makes this piece of copy resound for you. It
right,
makes it personal, right? So
right,
a lot of people now are not wanting to be talked at. They want to be
right,
talked with.
right,
So in order for an actor to have a chat with someone, whatever they're reading on that page is actually the second part of a conversation.
right,
And it's really it's making that connection. And so yeah, you can have a synthetic voice or no voice at all
right,
saying these words or showing words on a screen,
right,
but where is the connection? Where's the actual human relatability?
right,
And if you're with a tech company, okay, fine. I could see using a synthetic voice just for the
right,
fun of it. Like, experiment, go for it. If you're in a
right.
tech company, just have a great time.
Absolutely.
If you're not, it doesn't really fit what you're trying to come across as a brand.
Right, right.
And that that good enough is really starting to worry me because that's become our attitude with a lot of things, that good enough is
Absolutely.
good enough, and that means that people just don't try anymore. And
Right,
I think that's horrible. I think it's horrible for marketing. I think it's horrible for branding. I think it's horrible for advertising.
right.
So, yeah, that's where a voice actor comes in. They actually connect with who your company is and they bring that out in the script that you give them.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember I was doing an animated video for one of my clients, and I was obviously first the tool gave some AI voice, and it was not sounding so good for me. So I again went for a thrifty way of finding. I found somebody from Fiverr.com,
Hmm.
and he was an American somewhere in Florida or somewhere,
Yep.
and he did a voiceover on it. That video went to another level with his voice coming.
Hmm.
So it
It's
was
so
such a beautiful
true.
voice.
Yeah.
It was such an emotional. It became suddenly an emotional video. The product explanation was so powerful. The client went crazy, and it was not like voiceover artists. People avoid because they think it's too expensive.
Yeah.
It's a wrong myth actually. So most of them are the kind of impact their voice delivers. When you do a comparison with that, I don't think you're paying too much for that. Anyways,
Yeah. And I
right?
mean, I will say right now, I am not cheap.
Absolutely.
I mean,
You have done so much of work behind you, and you have worked with so many things. So you will bring something extra to the table, right? It's not
yeah.
that you're working with an amateur or a newbie voice actor sitting out of the basement and doing it. You do it with a professional studio, etc. So obviously,
Well, a
you
lot of
cannot be
us,
cheap.
yeah, a lot of us who have been doing this for a while, and this is like my 16th year of doing this full time.
Wow.
We've all had a lot of coaching. We've seen the trends. We've followed the trends. We've learned the trends.
Right,
We're
right,
doing things differently and upping our game all the time. We know how to get you what you need quickly the first time. That's really a lot of what voice acting tends to be these days. It's almost a
right.
service industry because
Absolutely.
I need to be able to interpret what you need as quickly as possible so that neither of us waste our time because we're all busy.
Right, right. Absolutely.
And you don't want to be coming back to the voiceover to have them do it 3 or 4 times because they don't get what you're trying to do. I will say that one of the quickest ways for you to get a voice actor to the tone that you need them to get to is to give them the piece of music that you think you're going to use behind their voice. Because a lot of times that gives us, especially for me, because I'm a musician as well, I'm a singer, that gives me the emotional context of what you're trying to accomplish. That
Right,
music. So I can fit into that music and make sure that my voice fits what that music is telling me you want. And it's
right.
almost subconscious. So really it's a huge help if
Right,
it's at all possible. But yeah, what you're paying for is the expertise, the quickness, the good
right,
service, the understanding of what it is you're trying to achieve without you having
right,
to, write a novel in an email. Like it's a lot of the figuring out of how to be directable and to get to what you need as quickly and easily as possible, and to make sure that that voice connects with the people you want it to connect with.
right,
Because otherwise, what's the point?
right,
Otherwise,
right.
yeah, you can totally hire a synthetic voice and use a synthetic
Absolutely.
voice for that. Why?
Yeah.
What would be the difference? The
Uh,
difference is the connection. The difference
right,
is the understanding of that script and what you want to achieve and getting it to you in a fast manner in the way you want.
right, right. It also shows how invested are you in your brand itself. Uh,
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, right. So I see, you are into a lot of audio platforms like Clubhouse. You have sessions there, etc. So my next question is related to that. Like, how does the rise of podcasting and all forms of other audio content affect the importance of audio branding?
Oh, it's just getting more and more important every day.
Right, absolutely.
Podcasts are getting so popular now, especially, I think it started during the pandemic, which is when Clubhouse started as well.
Right,
And I just think that we had ignored our surroundings sound wise for so long. I mean, the reason that I started the podcast, and it was in November of 2019, so it was way before the pandemic even started, it
right,
was because I was often finding that I was being used as the icing on the cake or the bow on the present at the end of the production. And
right,
people weren't really thinking about what that would do or how it would change things. Or, they were tacking it on the end because they figured, oh, we need this. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. We have all these wonderful visuals. Now we should think about music. What music would go on this? Oh, and now we need a voiceover. Oh, okay. Well, I guess we need to hire someone. Like it was, just kind of this afterthought. And
Right.
and I think it was as frustrating to the ad agencies and the creative directors and everyone who works in sound as it was to me. So
Right.
I was like, well, okay, why don't I start a podcast about this? Because people need to know how important this is. And it's not just important because it's a nice sound, because it makes our world sound better. It's
Right.
important because this is your livelihood, guys.
Right. Right. So
And
true.
your livelihood is on the line, and if you don't pay attention to sound now or at the beginning of a production, it's just not going to work as well as it could, and you're leaving money on the table, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm totally guilty of what you just mentioned. There was a time when we used to worry about music and sound part at the end of everything happens. After
Yep.
everything happens, we worry about that. But
Yeah.
now we have learned our lesson. Marketers are better nowadays. So we think about voice at least somewhere in the beginning. Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. You might have some favorite audio branding campaign. So can you give any example coming to your mind and what stood out in those campaigns?
I will say I just interviewed John Tate of Made Music, which is an audio
Okay.
branding company, and they have done a new brand sound for Tostitos, and it's pretty awesome.
Okay.
What I love about it is that it actually took pieces of the cans and the chips themselves and the bags and all of this stuff that you find around you when you're at a party and you're surrounded by the Tostitos brand,
Right.
which is everywhere.
Right.
And they took all of those pieces and they made a sound, like a piece of music sound, like a musical. I don't know if I would call it music, but musical out of all of these pieces of the actual brand itself. And I think
Right.
that Kia did the same thing. I think that Kia might have done the same thing. So car manufacturers, manufacturers of all kinds are getting to the point where they are making a unique and distinctive sound using themselves.
Right. Right. So true. So true. I have also noticed some
Yeah.
of them.
It's
Very
really
interesting.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And yeah, so we play the sounds themselves during the audio branding podcast, and it's just it's kind of mind blowing.
Absolutely. It, it,
Yeah,
Madam, it takes you to a different place altogether, right?
it
You,
does.
you, as a marketer, as a brand owner, you might think that why can't I think of something like that? So that's the kind of impact these kind of things have. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I mean, but you
so
don't just need to take music, is what I mean. Like you
yeah,
can take sounds that mean something to you, or think about it as in how does some visual sound, right? So if there's a sun in your logo, what does a sun sound like? What's the brightness of that? What does yellow sound like? Give some thought to these things, and you can come up with some really interesting brand sounds of your own. Like, I just think it's entirely possible. It's just that the audio branding companies take that to the next level.
right, right, right. They have their methodologies for that. That's
Exactly. Yeah.
fantastic. I just caught up on that. What does yellow sound like?
Yeah. I mean, is it a bright sound? Is it a loud sound? Is it a soft sound? Is it a
Right.
sparkly sound? Like, what is it? I don't know.
Right,
Like,
right, right, right. Absolutely.
yeah.
Another set of companies which have done well with sound is these meditation apps.
Oh,
If you look
yeah.
at if you look at Headspace, beautiful sounds, and obviously the founder Andy himself gives voiceover for the meditation sessions. But the
Sure.
background sound is so soothing and so
Yes.
nice, and with the
Yeah.
animation, it's another level altogether.
Yeah.
I just
Now,
thought,
if that sound doesn't sound like every other meditation app, then they're doing something right. If it
absolutely,
does, there's a problem.
absolutely, absolutely, complete agreement with
Yeah.
that. Right. So let's talk about AI and voice assistants. Okay. So how do technological advances like AI and voice assistant impact the future of audio branding?
Well, I mean, I think for marketers, it's actually a lot of help. I mean, it helps us do many things that were pretty tedious for us to be doing before, like coming up
Right.
with good SEO related titles for a podcast or for a particular episode, or even writing the beginnings of an article or figuring out something, an idea about what you could talk about that that has to do with these particular aspects, and just giving you prompts. It's really great for getting us started. I don't think it should be where we finish.
Right.
Because it should still have that human element to it. And also with AI, especially ChatGPT, you need to be careful with accuracy because it makes up stuff.
Yep.
It doesn't check its facts. It actually will suggest stuff to you that is completely untrue. And I mean, either because it thought it would make a good story, because it found it on the internet somewhere and a lot of people had paid attention to it. It's about a year behind, I think, right now, as far as accuracy from the internet is concerned. So it's just something to be, it's a tool to be used right now, but it's not a tool to be relied on. If I could say that. Absolutely. Not yet. I think that it can do a lot of things very well. Like, for instance, I think it passed the bar several times. I think it has all the medical knowledge of a practicing doctor. Like, like it's all there. It's just you need to be sure that it's accurate before you accept everything at face value, which of course is the internet in general. I mean, people can say anything they want on the internet. That doesn't make it true. Right?
So that's true.
Yeah. So discerning truth from true from false is still what we need to do.
Right. Human plus AI.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So we have come to the last question related to audio branding. So my last question will be, what tips and strategies can brands and content creators use to improve their audio branding? If you have any tips or any strategies you would like to call out.
Well, you know what? I think it just takes some thought, just thinking about it, because we often don't think about sound because it's constant in our background. It's always there. And so we take advantage of it. Like we take it for granted. And I think that it can be used in order to induce emotions. It can make people feel. So what do you want people to feel about your business or anything you're producing? What do you want them to feel? And once you figure that out, you find the combination of sounds that you think would work for you. And yes, you can totally start at a license-free music directory. For an individual, that is probably the cheapest way to go. Epidemic Sound is through YouTube, and they have sounds. They have like sound effects as well, I think. So there's all sorts of things that you can do. You could even take some sound effects and combine them with a piece of music, or you can just give it some thought, is all I'm saying. And try to be as individual as possible while still connecting with the people you need to connect with. So it's just something to give some thought to.
Right. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think we have come to the end of questions related to audio branding. So my last two questions are always about the guest, their journey, their work, etc., just to get to know them better and introduce you to the world. So my first question is, you have been a voice artist since 2007, if I'm not wrong. So tell us about, how did this journey start? You already said you're a musician, you're a singer, etc. And share some key highlights on this amazing journey. 2007. That's a long time.
Yeah. Well, I grew up with musical parents, so thankfully I was surrounded by sound. We had sing-along time instead of story time when I was a kid, which was fantastic. And my parents are still around, thankfully, and still making music, and but for fun, like. And so that was always something I was surrounded with. I've been a singer since I was about 6. Like, this has been since I could talk. That's what I love to do. I have a deeper voice, so it's more like jazz blues kind of stuff. It kind of lends itself for that. Back in 95, 96, I volunteered my time at the CNIB, which is the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. and I was reading magazine articles onto tape, onto reel-to-reel tape at the time.
Wow.
So yeah, it was quite a while back, and I loved it. I loved the tech of it. I really found it interesting, and I just loved the reading of it. But I didn't really know what voiceover was until I started doing that.
Right.
And then after that, I'm kind of left and right brained, which means that I have a logical side to me as well as a creative side. So I love computers, and I've always loved computers. I got my first desktop computer in '86. I was selling computers in the early '90s and the late '80s, actually. And I just loved the whole idea of it. So I got into the internet really, really early. And I started a songwriting message board, actually a songwriting resource on the web called the Muse's Muse. And it started in '95 as basically just a series of questions that I put online in an HTML page and asked people to email me back responses so that I could post their responses. There were no message boards at the time. This was '95, right?
Right.
It was
Right.
barely the age of websites.
Internet. Yep. Yep. Yep.
So I just did that, and it started from there. And it went into a list of songwriting contests, and it went into advertising for different musicians and spotlights, and then a message board finally, and then columnists, people who would write articles and such. And it even had its own radio show back in 2002.
Wow.
So it went until 2016. And at the time, from like '95 until about 2007, I was promoting that website on a dime. I had no money. I was promoting it for nothing. So I had to figure out the internet. I had to figure out search engines. I had to figure out SEO, like all of that optimization stuff, and
Right.
the marketing of an internet website. And
Right.
and I loved it for a really long time. And I started doing that on behalf of other people because I knew how to do it for my own website. So I'd learned it. I started doing it for other people. I became a freelancer doing that. And I did that until 2007. And in 2007, Google was it. Suddenly, Google was the only thing left that was of any relevance whatsoever. And I was so bored. I was so bored. Oh my goodness. So that little percolating thing in the back of my head that said, voiceover, voiceover. I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe now it's time.
Right.
And
Right.
because I was self-employed already, and I'm sure a lot of the people that you talk to on this podcast are self-employed,
Right.
it was just a focus switch. So for me, I could just say, okay, well, today my shingle says SEO and internet marketing. Tomorrow it's going to say voiceover.
Right. Right.
And, I still had a lot to learn. It probably took me about 2.5 years before I was making the same amount of money that I had been making as an internet marketing person.
Right.
But, that wasn't nothing, and it only went way better from there. So I've been upping my game ever since, doing the best that I can and learning as I go. And wow, the trends have changed.
Jodi, can you hear? I
Yes.
think I lost you for a minute there, or for a couple of seconds.
Yeah,
Yep.
I lost you too. I don't know what happened there. Yeah. So, I mean, bottom line was I've been learning as I go. The trends have changed a lot. And that's
Right.
actually one of the cool things about being a human voiceover is that you can
Right.
follow these trends and learn
Right.
them and
Right.
understand them and
Right.
do what you need to for your clients to make sure that they're getting what they need. And
Right.
it does take a lot of instruction. It takes a lot of
Absolutely.
coaching. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, you're a naturally gifted person, if I must say.
Thank you.
But the journey itself is a proof of that, right? You're being singing from such a young age, obviously gifted parents as well. So you picked it up, and then one thing led to another, and here you are. All right. So my final question is about your venture, Piece of Cake, voiceovers and vocals. So you're the owner of that. Tell us a little bit about the work you do for brands, and how can people reach out to you if they need an amazing voiceover artist?
Sure. Well, the voiceover that I provide is generally in the marketing and advertising vein of things. So I
Okay.
tend to do corporate narrations, and I've done some in-show narration for television shows, which I
Okay.
always love doing. And I've done some documentary work, which again, I love doing. But
Right.
generally, I'm in the commercials and corporate narration area, and I kind of stay away from long form narration. So I don't really do anything that's 5 minutes or longer. Like I don't do
Right.
longer than 5 minutes. The stuff that I do tends to be 5 minutes or less of
Right.
finished audio. And the reason I do that is so that I can really service my clients very quickly. So there are no
Right.
fires in my day. I just have
Right.
enough time to take care of everything.
Right. Right.
That's what I love about it. So
Right.
that keeps me being able to make sure that my clients get what they need really quickly and without fuss, and they can generally expect stuff from me, within an hour. And I've
Right.
done stuff within, actually I did something for someone yesterday within 9 minutes.
Wow.
So,
Nice.
it depends. It depends on what it is. It depends on what you need, how long the script is, what the requirements are. But the general idea is that working with a voice actor is supposed to make your job easier and
Right.
make you sound professional. So
Right.
that's what I lend to a production. But not only that, when we're talking about the audio branding, what a voice actor adds to that is the connection with what's being said, so that you can actually reach out and touch that client of yours, so that
Right.
somehow you're reaching them on a deeper level. So
Right.
it's not all about just adding a pretty voice.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the sound of the voice, to be honest.
Right.
It's all about what you do with it. So
Right.
so that's why I'm not at the moment upset by synthetic voices, because yeah, they can sound pretty. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's not enough
Right.
for the people who are, really in this for the long haul.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree because I have seen both the sides of it. So I completely agree to that 110%.
Hmm.
Right. So Jodi, we have come to the end of the show. Thank you so much, and I loved talking to you. And you're simply an amazing person. I've told you this at least 4 or 5 times. Because it's this show has introduced me to a lot of amazing people who have touched my life in one way or the other. I keep learning from them. I follow their content as much as they follow mine, and too much of things to learn from people. So thank you
Oh,
so much for
always.
coming here, and thank you so much for making my podcast sound better with your intro and outro voice. And I'll be in touch with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Okay.
So that was Jodi. I told you she is an amazing individual. Follow her work on LinkedIn. She does a lot of amazing sessions, like on her podcast, audio branding. Also, check out her website, voiceoversandvocals.com. If you need an amazing voice behind any marketing stuff you're doing, just reach out to her. She is super quick, and she will do amazing stuff on that. So that was episode 66 of the Thrifty Marketer Talks. I enjoyed today's show. Uh, I had guests booked for the rest of the month, but I might have to cancel them because I have to attend to a personal stuff. My dad is unwell, so I might not be doing show next week and next to next week. So I'll see you all with episode 67 very soon. Until then, take care. COVID cases are rising everywhere, in India especially. So wherever you are, wear your mask, sanitize your hands, stay safe, and have fun. Take care.